My name's Keith George. I'm TAFISA Commissioner for Education and also PVC for Research at Liverpool John Moores University. It's my great privilege and honour to open up this second TAFISA Mission 2030 webinar series, workshop series in association with TAFISA and IAKS, and we have a packed programme of speakers who are going to talk today. Firstly, a couple of things for organisation. We'll keep everybody on mute throughout the programme. If you want to ask questions, please use the chat function, and Stacey will monitor the chat function, and we'll try and make the question sessions as interactive as possible. We are going to record the session once Wolfgang starts to speak, so if you want to turn your camera off, you can do, and we'll invite everybody back on to camera just before the end for the traditional Zoom family photo. It's absolutely wonderful to have over 300 registrants. Not quite sure who muted me, but never mind. We have 300 people from 58 countries for this very important session, obviously looking at active spaces. And we'll get straight into it, and we'll do that by inviting Wolfgang, who's TAFISA General Secretary, if you want to say a few words, Wolfgang.
Thank you very much indeed, Keith, for these warm words of welcome. Once again, also from my side, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's global workshop, calling in or following from all ends of the world and all time zones of the world. And I do this on behalf of TAFISA, and in particular on behalf of the TAFISA president, Professor Joo-Ho Chang from Korea, who sends his warm greetings from Seoul. But I would also like to extend the greetings by Catherine Ford, our vice president from Trinidad Tobago, who is also joining today's session. TAFISA, which stands for the Association for International Sport for All, is a leading non-for-profit sport for all federation in the world, with nearly 400 member organizations from more than 170 countries. And as you have learned before, my name is Wolfgang, and I'm calling in from my home close to Frankfurt in Germany, where unfortunately today we have only rain and clouds in the sky. Yes, indeed, more than 300 participants from all over the world have originally registered to join this workshop under the theme Active Spaces, Fostering Active Communities. And I'd like to express our sincere gratitude for donating your time as the audience to be with us today for the next 2 hours or so. I feel privileged to say that this workshop is in partnership with 2 long-standing, I would call them, if I may, friends. IAKS, the International Association for Sports and Leisure Facilities, and it gives me great pleasure to also welcome its president, Dr. Stefan Kannewischer, and also the Secretary General, Klaus Meinel. Thank you for joining us. And of course, my thanks also go to the Liverpool John Moores University, represented by Keith George today. It's a pleasure for TAFISA to have both of you at our side. Moreover, I feel extremely proud that so many renowned sport leaders and experts in the field have accepted our invitation to speak, and we will introduce them in a minute and let you know who has been joining us today. The workshop is not one in many, but the second edition, as already Keith mentioned, of a workshop series of altogether 12 events launched by TAFISA only in March and escorting us for the next 2 years. And it's embedded in the strategic context of TAFISA's overarching strategy Mission 2030 for a better world through sport for all. And it was in 2017, as you can see from the chart, when this strategy, when this approach was approved by the TAFISA General Assembly, and so far more than 100 countries, 100 member organizations have signed this appeal and have signed this Mission 2030. The mission in itself provides a foundation for action to create a better world in the 12 years between 2017 and 2030. Next chart, please. And it addresses globally 12 different topics or themes, as we call them. You can see them here. It ranges from education, active cities, environment, gender equality, and so on and so on. And this is all under the headline of TAFISA Mission 2030. Next chart, to make it very short and brief. It's following the structure that the basic idea behind is to unleash the potential of what is lying in grassroots sport and sport for all. And we are typically distinguishing between 3 steps: take notice, which includes advocacy, lobbying, awareness building; take responsibility, get serious on what you are doing, announce your ownership, take over leadership, include education, and finally also, which is very important, to take action, of course. And it's also our concept to make sure that the wheel is not being reinvented all over again. It's in particular to share good experience all over the world, that we can make our movement of sport for all and grassroots sports even stronger. And at the end of the day, of course, it's also about leaving a legacy. With this having said, I would like to once again thank all of you for joining us today. Please take into account that you are part of something overarching, that you are creating this community of sport for all through this new type of communication owed to the pandemic in a way. Today, the world in a way is in one, with more than 50 countries attending. And finally, before I wish all of us a good experience and event today, I would also like to thank my colleagues, in particular Stacy, but also Jean-François and Gaëtan, for helping us to make this a reality. Once again, thank you very much to all of you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to an exciting experience and event.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. It's then a great pleasure for me to follow up and invite Klaus Meinel, who's the Secretary General of the International Association for Sport and Leisure Facilities. Klaus, I know you've got a couple of slides if you want to share the screen, and go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Keith, and thank you, Wolfgang, for these introductory words, and especially thanks, Wolfgang, for this warm welcome you just offered to all of us, and thanks also to the TAFISA team for organizing this very international forum. I'm really impressed about the multitude of country representatives who's present here. We from IAKS, we are really happy that TAFISA has made the step to address the issue of open spaces and urban development as part of its workshop series today, because we believe that open space and urban development, these are very important key factors to enable active living at all. So without spaces, activities are really hard to realize. I would like to tell a little bit about what IAKS is and stands for. So I'm going to share my screen now. So IAKS is the International Association for Sports and Leisure Facilities. It is a global non-profit organization for professionals from the sports, leisure, and recreation facilities industries. And our members are either planners, designers, architects for such facilities. They are construction companies or building product suppliers for the different types of facilities you can imagine, or they are operators for any kind of leisure and recreation facilities, from swimming pools to ice rinks to outdoor activity areas to school sports halls to big stadiums and arenas. We have about 800 members and partners all over the world, and this association has been founded in 1965 and is based in Germany. What we try to do is we try to offer a global network for our members and for our partners and friends to come together, to exchange their business know-how, to discuss innovations, challenges of the industry, and By doing so, we have long-term partnerships, for example, with the REC, the IPC, TAFISA, XP, and many other international bodies. We have a mission. This is facilitating an active world. And I would like to show you some photographs from exemplary leisure facilities that might illustrate what our members and what our network is understanding when we talk about facilitating an active world, because from the facility perspective, this is very challenging, very interesting, and also very dynamic. So I hope the slide is moving. No, it's not. What is wrong? Okay. So what does it mean facilitating an active world? I mean, it's about public space, which should be a leisure facility for many people. It's a place for socializing. It's also infrastructure for gentle activities, not only the high-level sports training facilities. It's much about gentle activities. Facilities should enable lifelong healthy lifestyles. Facilities should enable or offer accessibility for all age groups and different kind of inabilities. Then for us, from the architecture side, it's certainly very important that facilities should offer good design to create pleasant atmospheres. We always see a growing importance of multifunctionality, especially from the point of view from the operators. And there's certainly lots of challenges. For example, the scarcity of space is a very challenging topic for us, because without space, we cannot design, build, and operate facilities. We have different types of locations, urban and suburban locations, more rural locations. Safety of facilities becoming more and more important, especially for different types of user groups or different types of religious groups. Climate change is addressing a huge issue for many facility operators and also for the construction companies. Economic changes, especially in these pandemic times, certainly is a huge issue. There are segments of our industry who are struggling very hard by the pandemic. And then we certainly also have to see that the money which is around for infrastructures is often going to the high-level facilities for spectator sports and not really to the recreation and basic facilities for the citizens. So how do we do all this? We have different types of expert circles where people can talk with each other. We organize conferences, we organize study trips, we publish white papers or magazine, we organize a biannual architecture prize together with the IRC and the IPC for innovative and sustainable sports leisure facilities. And last but not least, I would like to invite you to our Congress going to take place in October of this year in Cologne, together with the FSB trade show, which will address the issue of developing healthy and sustainable communities. Yeah, thanks for listening. I think the PPT moved a bit different from what I said, but anyway, I would like now to hand over back to Keith.
Klaus, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, and some fascinating examples of new developments, which is really good. I'm going to share my screen and let's see if this works. And there we go. Okay, so what we have coming up in the rest of the program is some exemplar programs of activity from multiple cities around the globe, representing different types of cities in different economic and cultural settings. And we're going to get some fantastic examples of really innovative work from different places and the challenges and the opportunities that different cities have faced. All I wanted to do was set the scene with a few slides in relation to how spaces and physical activity interact. And effectively, when we talk about physical activity, we often focus on leisure time physical activity. What do we do? What do we make choices about? And what do we do when we have free time, when we're not at work, when we're not with the family? And there are many traditional spaces associated with our leisure time physical activity. There are a number of pictures associated with that here. Some of those are obviously internal, some of them are outside, some of them are very structured in terms of requiring specific facilities. But I think the important point about today's webinar is threefold. One, we've got to think beyond traditional spaces and just leisure time physical activity. We've also got to understand the importance of the city-based surrounding or the environment, because that's a huge challenge for the vast majority of the population is accessing space that will allow people to do physical activities in an urban world. And of course, we can't forget what's happened in the last 12 months around the globe with the COVID pandemic. And many of our traditional spaces have been limited to us in terms of ability to access them and engage in physical activity. And that's putting a huge pressure upon physical and mental well-being around the globe. So what we have to do is we've got to think a little bit outside the box, but also understand that for many of us, some of our traditional spaces for physical activity accumulation are also going to be associated with work. There are many types of work around the globe, from the agri-economy setting to the medical professions quite clearly who are run off their feet at the moment, to the people delivering post and taking away refuse around the globe. And making sure that we understand those things in the traditional perspective are quite important. What today's about, though, is looking at what I would refer to as evolving spaces or evolving opportunities for looking at and designing physical activity into our lifestyle. And there are many ways we can do that, and many important settings. Probably the most important setting is the sedentary work environment. We're going to all spend the next 2 hours sat down. So one of the things I might say to you is please stand up every half an hour and move around whilst you're watching a video screen or a TV screen or a computer screen. And we've got to take opportunities to invest in our workspaces to make us more active. Seated and standing desks are one particular way in which you can do that, but I'm sure there's going to be many more developed. Other areas of importance in relation to physical activity might involve family activities or activities of daily living. Here we've got somebody who's obviously engaging in physical activity because they're shopping, as opposed to what they've probably done for the last 12 months, which is shop online. And shopping is actually one of the things that people forget when they talk about the ability to design spaces to get people to engage in moving activities. Active travel has probably been on our agenda for a lot longer than some other areas, but it is an important thing in terms of looking at space. Around the globe, we've seen a huge increase in the ability or the desire to design safe cycling spaces and safe walking spaces for all of us working in and living in a city environment, rather than trying to fight with the crowds to get onto our mass transport systems. Not that there's a clear ability to get rid of mass transport, we need that, but we need to look at opportunities to develop physical activity during the travel process. And one of the things that has been really high profile over the last 14 months is moving into our green and blue spaces and utilising those within the city environment to positively impact on physical activity, but as we also know, to impact on mental well-being and health generally. One of the challenges related to our green and blue spaces in cities is making them safe, is making them sustainable and making them available for us to actually engage in physical activity. So I don't want to say anything more here other than to say what we're hopefully going to get from our speakers from around the globe is how they begin to think outside the box, looked at new opportunities, new targets, and new possibilities for promoting physical activity in the urban setting by spreading the types of environments in which physical activity might take place. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Thank you for giving me that chance to just introduce the session and say now that it gives me great pleasure to have our first international speaker who is joining us from Chinese Taipei. It's Joshua Yu from Taitung City, and I believe you're here with Theodore Leshnik, who's going to help with translation of the questions. So Joshua, if you're ready to share your screen for 10 minutes, we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Members of TAFISA, fellow speakers, distinguished guests, greeting from Taitung, Taiwan. I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak to you today. TAFISA has always played an important role in promoting athletics, and I believe that your mission 2030 will bring about a better world through sports. The natural beauty of Taitung makes it paradise for sports and has driven our latest wave of excitement for outdoor recreation. It has also turned Taitung into a hub for international athletics tourism. Athletics makes our world a better place, and it certainly has let Taitung shine. Today, I'd like to share how Taitung has made this transformation into a city that attracts people far and wide to enjoy the beauty of athletics. Booking.com rated Taitung the most welcoming region on Earth in 2021. In 2020, we had over 10 million visitors. Our hotel booking rate was first in the nation, standing at 68%. Expedia said that Taitung was the most popular place for domestic travel in 2020. Over the past few years, we have witnessed our unique laid-back atmosphere kickstart the slow economy. Also, Taitung's brand of being authentic, friendly, and beautiful has taken shape from our stunning nature and warm, welcoming people. We firmly believe that through fostering Taitung's brand, adding value to our attractions, promoting organic tourism, and structuring our slow economy, we can create has some of the cleanest air on Earth. Taitung also has a wealth of indigenous culture as well as the longest stretch of coastline and the largest number of hot springs in Taiwan. We are also the only place in Taiwan to host an international hot air balloon festival, as well as an international surf competition. Taitung is large in area, but small in population. We have 1/10 of Taiwan's land mass, but only 1/100th of population. Taitung is very suitable for developing athletics, tourism, and the large-scale competitions. For instance, we like to promote organic tourism through utilizing our pristine environment to host one-of-a-kind events. More importantly, organic tourism promotes sustainability by alleviating stress on the environment. Organic tourism combines tradition with innovation and technology. The aim is to create better travel experience. It also enhances the quality of life for the entire ecosystem while creating mutually beneficial interdependence. This is similar to how we combined athletics with tourism to create an international brand through our athletic tourism industry. Tourism will change in the post-pandemic era from short taxing trips into a novel form of extended wellness retreats. Besides wellness, tourists will also want to delve deeper into the authentic culture, traditions, history, and the natural landscape of given place. This is what makes Taitung's athletics tourism so special. Only here can you experience Taitung's green mountains, blue ocean, and pristine air while doing what you love. This makes people want to come back time and time again. In Taitung, there are a wide variety of things you can do, from the land to the sea and even in the sky. There's something for everyone. These activities also vary in intensity, from leisurely bike ride to a full Ironman. Every year, Taitung is home to over 20 large-scale athletic events. For instance, we have the world-famous Ironman as well as the Challenge Taiwan Triathlon. We are proud that Challenge Taiwan 2020 broke a world record for attendance, and this year's Challenge Taiwan broke an attendance record for the Asia-Pacific region. Taitung has the highest return rate among Ironman participants. The main factor is our world-famous routes. It lets participants swim in the beautiful flowing lake, run through the forest park, and bike along the Pacific Ocean. In Taitung, athletics is not just a body exercise. It's a way for the mind, body, and the soul to connect to life itself. 2021 is bike year in Taiwan. Taitung has 10 dedicated bike paths. This allows the public to enjoy Taitung by bike without participating in a large-scale athletics competition. In addition, I highly recommended seeing Taitung by train and chain, a bike paired with the convenience to our rail network is the best way to see Taiwan's longest stretch of coast and beautiful seascapes. Taitung also has numerous ancient chairs which have become exercise hotspots for the public. In terms of getting around, these ancient chairs were very important to our ancestors. The public now has access to these chairs because of the county government's comprehensive planning. A hike on one of these chairs isn't just about physical wellness. It's a chance to connect with the people around you. Water sports are must during a visit to Taitung, and scuba diving on one of our outlying islands is a great choice. Green Island is one of the top 10 spots in the world for diving. The Chancellor current brings a wide range of fish to the area. The water is very clear with visibility up to 15 meters. The area's beautiful, crystal clear water has turned Green Island into Mecca for divers. In addition, Green Island is home to the world's deepest underwater mailbox, meaning a letter from 11.5 meters deep is a once in a lifetime experience. Taitung also has world famous surfing. We are now home to the WSL Longboard Championship, as well as the WSL Juniors Championships. This is the only place in the world that the WSL hosts two championship competitions at the same time. Taitung held the world's only hot air balloon festival last year, which attracted a record-breaking 1 million people. In addition, Taitung also has a wide variety of area spots, such as paragliding and skydiving. We also have accelerating zip lines as well as SUP, which will surely put your balance to the test. Also, Taitung is about to launch its accreditation program this year. This includes the ISQM International Service Quality Accreditation accommodation geared toward the extended stays. Accommodation less elderly friendly as well as hotels designed to host the triathletes. This plan will let visitors truly experience Taitung, the most welcoming place on Earth. We look forward to connecting with the world through athletic tourism. These connections will allow visitors to experience a Taitung beyond imagination. Taitung thinks less is more. We hope the same 10,000 guests come back and connect with our culture and stories 100 times. I'd like to once again thank TAFISA for our hard work. I firmly believe that Taitung and the international community can come together through athletics. Together, we can make the world a healthier and a more active place for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua. That was really informative. It looks like a beautiful part of the world, and clearly you're using your available blue, deep blue, light blue and green spaces in a really positive way. I've got time for two questions. One has come from Pat Daly. Do you have any measures for how your developments of activities and events have impacted well-being in your communities in Chinese Taipei?
I'm sorry, do you mind rephrasing the question?
Is there any measurement or any
measures like
about the impact of what has happened in Taitung on health and well-being?
指标吗？有任何的指标可以测量这种的措施吗？
指标
用什么去衡量？
对，衡量。
衡量什么东西？
衡量的是我们在这边的措施怎么改善那个养生的人民的养生。
对啊，我们可能从那个第一个从入籍的人数，进入到台东的人数，第二个从我们的寿命，平均的余命，
但是这个跟就是人民的养生有关系吗？就是这边的市民
跟我们的养生有关系。这是第三个，就是从来到台东那居住的天数跟次数，对，就是代表我们这个环境是很 welcome。
Okay. Yeah. Our main measures for understanding the success of this come from the return rates of people.
You've muted, I'm afraid. Can you turn off your mute?
Yeah, the main way that we measure these the effects of our programs is through the return rates that we have. So people come back, they feel satisfied, which indicates that Taitung is a healthy and active place that is very welcoming.
我们会提供一种方式，可以去评估一来再来的台东的人数。
And we have ways of determining this and understanding these kind of statistics.
Could I ask very quickly what the impact of the pandemic has been on tourist and return numbers?
到目前为止，因为台东零确诊，所以反而对台东影响不大，因为所有台湾的人都跑来台东旅游了。
So as of right now, there have been 0 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Taitung. So the impact has been relatively small, but actually, since people can't travel abroad, Taiwanese people can't travel abroad so easily, they come to Taitung and engage in tourism here.
土地面积是台湾1/10，人口只有1%，所以密度非常稀少。
And the population of Taitung is quite sparse, so we've been able to keep the pandemic under control here quite well.
Okay, I really appreciate your support and the presentation. We are running a little bit behind time, so we're going to move on. So thank you very much to all from Taitung and Chinese Taipei. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce Eleonora Bauer. I've known Eleonora for a number of years through the Global Active Cities program, and she's going to talk to us about some of the fabulous work being undertaken in Buenos Aires. So over to you, Eleonora.
Thank you, Guy. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Thank you. Well, so I'm going to go deep into one specific program in Buenos Aires. As you know, in Buenos Aires, we have the Global Active City program in place. We call it Buenos Aires Ciudad Activa. But specifically today, I'm going to go deep into one program, which is the Estaciones Saludables. The Estaciones Saludables is a program. Let me move on. There you are. So the Estaciones Saludables is a program that was born in 2012. And at that time, we were looking for innovative ways of connecting people with health prevention and specifically prevention of non-communicable diseases. So we are looking to change habits of the people and in a different way, not going to hospital. So we designed those white boxes that you can see here in the middle of the park. Today, those white boxes are embedded into the whole city. We have almost 40 estaciones saludables all around the city in different places. And the main focus of this program, it was the guidelines was to design some place that it has friendly access. So the estaciones saludables are in the parks, are close to the subway or close to stop buses or in places where you have a lot of people crossing by. We also have different shapes of estaciones saludables, one's bigger, one smaller, one that you can move on to different places like a sport event or community event. So you can bring the message of healthy habits in place. The estaciones saludables, at the very beginning, they began to offer, I don't know why I can't change, there you are. At the very beginning, the Estaciones Saludables, the first services that bring to citizens was the healthy checkups like blood pressure, blood glucose test, the weight, the BMI test. Then nutritional counseling, different talks about how to maintain healthy habits. And then the other main purpose of the Estaciones was to connect how to connect physical activity with healthy habits. So the yellow box was the beginning of a lot of services, not only inside, but also outside, like this picture you can see, where you can get inside and there's a nursery where the nursery offered to you the blood test or glucose, and offer to you different activities, like to say, you can see this calendar, you can have a yoga class or stretching or walking classes or dancing just outside at this time. You can also ask inside the Estación Saludable for different sports stuff, like a ball to play with friends. You can inflate your bike, different sports services, friendly services, a safe place within the park. So it's the way to connect leisure, physical activity with healthy services and prevention. So at this time, 1.3 million people in 7 years went into the station, but the most beauty of this amount of people is that people went an average of 3.3 times to the station. So it means that people go and they repeat and they continue going. We have everything recorded with a specific software, so we can see that we can continue each of this person going to the station. So we need to transition from health checkup to physical activity to a more healthy habits overall. So the impact we have with these Estaciones Saludables, we measure that people that goes at least 2 times to the Estaciones, they can reduce, the 50% of them, they could reduce the weight, they could reduce or control blood pressure, but we need them to go at least twice. So today, this is a typical picture of how it's a meeting point before pandemic, obviously. This was a meeting point at the very beginning. We have elderly people, but today the idea and the goal was to bring more services to the family and specifically for younger people. Where we detected is a population we need to bring more awareness about how to prevent and how to take care of ourselves. So today we ample the services, and the services today we need to offer different solutions from the Estaciones to empower the citizens to make better decisions. So we ample the offer that the core of the Estaciones is staying in place, but we ample from nutritional counseling at the very beginning to, for example, healthy cooking classes or cognitive courses of gardening or farming workshops. Then another, we are trying a lot of new solutions. Like, for example, a very nice example is like, if you live in a small apartment, for example, and you want to place a nice place for your kids to celebrate the birthday, so you can go to the Estaciones, and the Estaciones, they help you how to design a healthy birthday party. and they offer to you different games, very simple games outside, like tables, and they offer to, and they assess you about the menu and which is the main menu, so your kid can have a nice place in the park with facilitating you a healthy birthday. Then we connected with different NGOs, which they offer organic fresh fruits and vegetables. So you also can go there as a delivery point for fresh greens and fruits. So this is today where we are ample, and we are still looking for different solutions to make a friendly place where we send messages. It's a community place, replacing the typically hospital visit, trying not in terms of illness, in terms of prevention. So this is a typically class, gardening class in the back of the station, as you can see here. And we had the problem, as most of us, with the lockdown. So the estaciones went into a virtual mode during the lockdown. Now they are reopening. As you know, in Argentina, we had a long lockdown. So we move into virtual, a virtual place. We have all people, the 1.3 million people. We have the contact. We have the email. So we could offer them this option with different, with 4 categories, different dimensions, like the offer to have a physical activity at home, offer to cook healthy with different chats, different nutrition to assess you at home, to a service specifically for teachers, you know, teachers giving virtual classes too, and how to connect with healthy habits for kids, and then specific dimension specifically for kids, like kids chats, and also the virtual birthday party with the main message about healthy habits. So up to today, we experienced more than 60,000 virtual participants. And now we hope this is going out again, and we are moving. We are just at this time, we are now in a second wave, but we are moving again to the park as we did it before the pandemic. So this is as a summary of this program. Anyone who wants more information, you can write me. And finally, we have a lot of participants, very important people coming into the stations. I see in the participants and Sean Marsden, he had the chance to go there. And finally, we have Thomas Bach. During the Olympic Games, he did the time to go there and to have a blood pressure test. So he experienced what it means to be there and outside the Estación Saludable. So thank you very much.
Eleonora, as always, that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you very much. And it certainly generated a little bit of interest. A couple of questions that I've spotted already. From Brunson Mass, is there any policy to apply these initiatives to other cities in the region? Are you going to take it outside of Buenos Aires?
Yes, we have within Argentina. We have we sent all the model to Mendoza. They did a pilot test in Mendoza. We also did a cooperation with Ecuador in the past. And after the games and after Thomas Bach visit, we send all the model and we give it for free, all the model to the IOC. So they have the rights to share with all the world. Okay, that's brilliant. Questions from various people, Lecture and John here. Who employs the staff and who decides the location of the stations? this is a government initiative. So all the staff is part of the Buenos Aires city government. Typically, we have two types of employees, nurses and nutritionists. This is the main profile of the station.
Okay, and who decides where they go, Eleonora?
There's a team, and we design. We have different estaciones. The bigger one, we designed it with the park, the community, looking for specific places at main crossing points. Those ones are very difficult to move because it's you have to build it in place. But then we have different other types that they are more, you can move it more. And we are continuously looking the fluency of people and trying to get the better place.
And just one more question before we move on. One was about localizing these next door to sports arenas or sports equipment, or do you get better responses in specific areas?
Yes, we have typically different parks that we have more physical activity. As for example, in the financial district, if we put it the estaciones, it's not a typically place to do sports or to walk or run. So we have more physical activity and connected with the sports offers in the parks. Not, for example, not in a train station. We have it in a train station.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Eleonora. We have to move on, and we're jumping across the Atlantic Ocean from South America across into Africa, and again gives me great pleasure to introduce Eugene Nzabanterura. I apologise, Eugene, if I've not pronounced your second name correctly, but we're looking forward to your presentation. So when you're ready to share your screen, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this occasion. To me, it's a great pleasure to be one of the speakers. It's an honor to be one of the speakers in this workshop. Thank you once again for the TAFISA administration and the staff for their courage and their commitment to promote sports and physical activity all around the globe. In my today presentation, I'll focus mainly on what we call Car-Free Day in Rwanda. These are days dedicated to sports and physical activities. And during these days, cars are stopped for only to be used for sports and physical activities. Let me start by first represent or introduce Rwanda. Next. Rwanda, my country where I come from, is a country in East Africa. It's the more densely country in Africa with over 12 million of the population, and it has more than 479 people on 1 square kilometer. It is the most densely country in Africa. And in its history, it has a tragic history characterized by colonialism, bad leadership, and conflicts, divisions, and those bad leadership and divisions led to 1994 genocide against Tutsi, a genocide that took over 1 million lives in only 3 months. But today, Rwanda is known as one of the rapid growth, the country that are progressing economically, and it is also known by its visionary and good leadership. It is also known by its security and safety and its cleanliness. Next. Why do we rely on sports and physical activity in Rwanda? As I said earlier, Rwanda has been characterized by divisionism, conflicts, and after the 1994 genocide, Rwanda, we sat down and see what we can do. We have taken 3 big decisions. The first one was to staying together. The second was to being accountable. And the third one was to think big. And by thinking big, we have chosen to rely on sports, as sports may help us to be together as the citizens. It may help us to heal some of the repercussions or the consequences of the conflicts we went through. It can help us also to deal with some of the problem like trauma and depression that was spread all around the country due to those bad history I have said earlier. Next. Rwanda, by choosing sports as of one of the tools that may help in healing the society, the government has put in place different initiatives that may promote sports and physical activities. These are some of tips, examples taken by the government. One of them is the physical activities and the sports competition in public and the private sector. In our labor law, it is stipulated, well stipulated, that every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m., those hours are dedicated to sports, be it in the public sector and the private sector. Those workers in private and public institutions go to sports and physical activities, and it is stipulated in the law, as I said. This is the second example I have mentioned here is the mass sports in public and private schools. It is done all Saturdays morning. And the third example I'm saying here is the car-free days. And this is the main topic of today's presentation. And we can move on. Next. What is a car-free day in Rwanda? A car-free day, these are days dedicated to physical activities and sports. It started in Kigali city, the capital of Rwanda, in 2014. And today it is spread all around the country in all 30 districts. And it is a bi-monthly event. And during those days, all roads are closed and are used for physical activities and sports. All roads are closed from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Roads are used for not only the roads, but also the public parkings and public spaces. They are also used for physical activities, jogging, running, riding bicycles, skating, etc. After those activities, people get together. There are some gathering points like public parking and public areas where people do stop for a while, for example, 1 hour, and they do what we call stretching. And after stretching, people can go to medical checkups. And we do medical checkups mainly for non-communicable disease. Next. So far, let me talk about the benefits of car-free day registered so far. As I said earlier, Rwanda has been characterized by conflicts, and by these car-free days, people get together, and this enhances the social cohesion. Also, the citizens are mobilized and sensitized to preserve their health through the use of physical activities. There are different speakers at those days who can give advices mainly in the way of feeding, the way people can keep their health more healthy. People are also diagnosed different disease after the sports and physical activities. People are diagnosed different disease, mainly non-communicable disease like hypertension or hypotension, dental problems, diabetes. They even check the vision-related disease. On my right, you can see the President of the Republic of Rwanda sitting in front of a doctor making the medical checkup. At this event, the President was at that event of Car-Free Day. These days are also used for public and private businesses. As people are together, they're used for marketing and mobilization. And besides that, those days help us to reduce the amount of gases emitted by motorized vehicles in the air. It helps us to preserve our environment. Next. Next. These are some of the photos showing the attendance or how people do attend those days. At my right, there is a President of the Republic addressing the public after the event. On the other side, there's people sitting down in stretching just after the physical activities. Down here, we have the IAKS member Felicite and Dame Ruiz, the president of the CGF. She was in Rwanda, and that day she attended the Car-Free Day. Next. So far, we have some of the stakeholders who help us in making those days more fruitful. We can say the Minister of Sports, we can say the seat of Kigali and the districts. And for the Minister of Sports, they are mainly focused on guidelines on making those days more fruitful. For the cities and districts, they mainly focus on mobilization and logistics. We have also referral and district hospitals. They are also on board as we need those doctors, we need those equipments to make medical checkups. We have even private hospitals who are on board. We have the Rwanda National Olympic Committee. For Rwanda National Olympic Committee, we are mainly in charge of trainings and the capacity building, mainly training those where the people in stretching, those trainers. We have non-governmental organizations like UNICEF and others, and you have the private sector who are also on board to help the event to be more fruitful. Next. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eugene. That was, again, fascinating insight into a different situation and scenario. Lots of hand clapping and thumbs up going there. If you do have questions, can you please use the chat function and we'll pick those up and present them. But Eugene, what I'm interested in when you have these big events for big spaces for for long periods of time, what sort of numbers of people do you get attending the sort of activity sessions when the roads are closed?
For example, in Kigali city, at one event, we have 7,000 people in one event. This is only in Kigali, in the capital. But in other districts, we have 30 districts. They have between 3,000 and 5,000.
That's fabulous. And is it only in the cities, or does it actually spread out into some of the towns?
Yes, it is spread in towns, and currently we are trying to make them reach even at the village level. A village is the lower level in the administrative structure. We have over 2,500 villages in the country.
Okay, and have you had any concerns or unhappiness about these programs for people who, you know, need to travel or have disability related issues?
We have the police around, and this is the police that closes the roads. We have alternative roads which can help, for example, when it is a case of someone who is sick, if it is an ambulance, if it is someone with another function, the police is there to help.
Okay. And I've got one question from the chat. Does it apply to all roads in the city, or just to a central area or a busy area?
All the roads are not closed. As I said, there are main roads and big roads who are closed, and the police does its best to make it in a way that there is an alternative road in case there is a need of passing.
Okay, that's brilliant. And thank you for Helen for asking that question. Eugene, thank you very much for a fascinating talk. We're time limited, so we are going to have to move on. And we're taking the jump from what looks like a lovely warm country to one that can get quite cold on occasions. And we're going to Denmark in Europe. And it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Oliver Vanges, who's going to talk about physical activity and spaces in Denmark. So whenever you're ready, Oliver, away you go.
Thank you very much, Keith. And thank you to TAFISA and to the IAKS for inviting us to speak at this workshop. We are greatly honored. And as you said, Keith, Denmark is slightly colder than Rwanda, probably, and we're about half the population of Rwanda, just to give you the idea. And I've allowed myself to make a sort of an under title to my presentation, from inactive spaces to active places. And I'd like you, if you want to keep these two words, spaces and places, at the back of your mind through the presentation, which will fall in two parts. One, the first one, a bit slower, a bit more theoretical, and then at the end, I'll speed up and show you a few examples of what I'm talking about. First of all, I'm not able to go forward. Wonder why.
Do you want to try unsharing and sharing again, Oliver?
Yeah, I'll just try once again. Thank you. That's better. So just briefly about who we are, the Danish Foundation for Culture and Sports Facilities, very easy to remember, or just the lower if you want. We're an independent governmental organization. We develop and financially support innovative facilities for sports and culture and outdoor activities. So the method we work by is by exemplary projects, and I'll show you a few at the end of the presentation. And we always work in collaboration with local authorities or organizations. We can never be project owners ourselves. We have to just team up with local authorities. And we are financed by the National Lottery, about 12 million euro per year. So just a very simple model, which you'd be amazed how useful it is when you work in the sector that I do, converting local needs for sports and leisure into the built environment. Some of you probably know this. It's all about actually taking time, asking yourself the question, why do we actually want to build anything in this local environment? A lot of the time, we actually just assume that something is needed. So why do we want to build something? And then we move on to the method or the approach or the principles on how to build something which achieves our goals. And at the very end, the solutions, what should be built. And quite often, it starts the other way around, that we start with what, and then we figure out why we need it. So it has to be, in our view, knowledge driven. You have to know something about what's going on in the local society or in the nation even. So here are some of the megatrends that we've learned from the past years of research in Denmark, and it goes for a lot of other countries, I'm sure, but I won't promise. So increased participation, not the least by adults and elderly. We have polarization. Fewer people do more sports or more hours of sports. So that's a thing to be noted. We now know something about motivation. Why do children, why do adults participate in sport activities? And that's to be taken into consideration. You can maybe see the diagram at the far right, that the children, when you ask them, why do you do sports? It's having fun, which is completely dominant. And then the social aspect of being with friends, and then improving your own skills. And at the very bottom of the diagram is winning and participating in tournaments. And this should have some influence in how you build sports facilities. That's our claim anyway. We also know that teenagers seem to drift out of club organized sports. That's sort of a mega trend. Can this be countered in any way? There are profound changes in the preferred activities over the years, and this should certainly have an influence on the built environment. And very importantly, when we started asking the Danish population whether they were physically active or sports active at all, twice as many men were active compared to women, and now it's completely even. And it has not influenced our built environment enough, this mega trend, in my opinion. Also, we know that children are active in designated sports arenas and facilities, and adults are pretty much on their own in private centers, fitness centers, and so on, and also in the public spaces around the city. So, which needs are we actually addressing? A lot of our applicants come from the bottom left, the nurturing circle, the well-established sports practitioners that need more capacity. So that would be a typical application in our foundation. We rarely see applications from the top circle, the needs, which would be a case where you cannot actually perform your activity because the facility just isn't there. It happens, but it's not very often. And we never get applicants from the bottom right, the nudging circle, where we're talking about people that are not already physically active. They do not come forward with their ideas to what physical activity should be in their local environment. So we have to seek them out and hear their voice in other ways, because they do not emerge by themselves. So just a little tool to have a look on. You don't have to read sort of all through it, but at the bottom in the central circle, you have the regular users, the people that we know that are well established within sports, and at the very other end of the spectrum, you have the potential user, or the the non-sportsman or the passerby or whatever you'd like to call this group. So, and in between we have different variations in between those. So how can we actually address these different groups? And it's actually a very simple model, and it's very good to discuss with the architects and project owners. Who do you actually want to appeal to? And if we translate that into the built environment or architecture, if you want, you have the highly specialized facilities at the bottom. They're well defined. We have a lot of experience here, and we actually know how to build these without a lot of innovation going on, or maybe just technical innovation, more or less. At the other end of the diagram, you see at the top the invitation to be active. It has to be sort of an architectural language which invites to be active just where you are. Just come and be active just like that, and you don't have to change or put your sneakers on. You can just explore and be active as it is. And in between, we see different variations having a lot of different activity areas closely connected, so you can sit on the side and quietly have a look, where can I actually participate in this activity. And also you see at the second from the bottom, this woman actually adding some challenge into her running experience by choosing a pace that she can run in the park. It's not necessary to use the park run, but she can do that because she's an experienced runner, and it adds to the experience for her. So that's a reason to come back for her, that it's a quality in her training experience. So it's all about functionality, basically. And as I said, we have the monofunctional facilities that we know so well, and also the multifunctional, which will fit almost anything, but be not really good at anything either. Is sort of too unfocused to be really good. And where we find the interesting area is in between, of course. When you take one functionality, work it through with one user group in mind, and then add another user group, and then be just as what do you call it? Dedicated to actually make a great environment for them. So here's some example of problem-oriented project development. So you all know this one, the urbanization tendency, which is worldwide, and certainly in Denmark as well, we feel it. And what happens when people crowd together in the city? We've heard it before today that this actually, and I think Klaus Meinel mentioned it, the hunting for space in the city. This is a new part of Copenhagen, and you can see it's already densely built out, and the remaining space is so expensive real estate that putting a football field there is just not an option. So where can we actually fit some physical activity? Well, in this case, we had to be creative, and this is a parking facility, but on the rooftop. This facility is, what is it actually? It's a viewing platform. It has a beautiful view on the Copenhagen harbor, but it's also a playground, and it's certainly also a functional training space for dedicated fitness people to actually be active here. So we try to develop projects with that are plural in functionality, not multi, because that's sort of more in focus, but plural one by one. Another challenge. So this is the entrance, the main entrance to Copenhagen. So how can we actually work with climate change and making the environment robust when it comes to certain rainfalls? So one example would be, well, this space here, what do you actually see? You don't have to answer it, but some would say it's probably a skating facility. This guy would disagree, because for him it's actually a state-of-the-art rainwater handling facility. And this is the guy that actually came up with the idea, and he had engineers draw it out, just very rational and the skaters actually found the engineer drawings and said, "Oh, hang on, with just a little adjustment, we can use this for our skating activity." And that's what they do 99% of the time, whereas 1% it would be flooded and doing its other purpose. So it's certainly a well-developed double function. And another situation is spaces left over after planning or a slope. This is from Paris, where a street was closed off from car traffic, and how can you actually reuse that space and make that an active city indicator? So this was turned in very cheaply into a skating space as well. And this is actually another part of the Copenhagen Harbor, Islands Brygge it's called. This was just in the 80s, I think, where it was a really industrial area and quite low-cost living areas at the time. And now, during the transformation from urban industry to a recreational city or recreational harbor, it's one of the most popular spaces in Copenhagen, and it's completely flooded with people. It doesn't even have to be warm. I mean, as long as the sun is there, people will be at this space. And the real estate situation has changed completely in this area. So another challenge in the dense city would be finding space for necessary infrastructure. And probably some of you know the Little Mermaid, which is a prominent tourist attraction in Copenhagen. In the background, when you see her now, you see this golden glowing building on the right of the screen. And this is actually an incinerator called Copenhill. It is an incinerator for burning waste from Copenhagen households, but it's also a recreational space. It's an all-year skiing slope, but it's also a mountaineering destination to actually take a walk or run up to the beautiful view. And it's also one of the tallest climbing walls. You can see the blue indicated on the side of the building. So that's basically making most of the space, which is so valuable in the city, the idea about that. Or you can do something, another strategy. We're now in Mexico, where we find, you can see it on the bottom of your screen. This is after the project was completed. It used to be an underused little rundown football area, but now with quite simple measures, it's been converted from a space to a place, returning to my headline. So what has actually been done? Very little. I mean, it's just a standard small football court, but in really nice colors and with a nice atmosphere. It's creating an inviting and safe environment, which is certainly a local magnet for just for meeting, but also for playing football at all times of the day. You see the light there as well. So it doesn't really have to be really massive projects to apply these principles to the built environment for recreational spaces. And that completes it for me.
Brilliant, thank you, Oliver. I remember seeing Copenhill on a couple of TV adverts. I can't remember exactly which company they were advertising, but it was impressive to see nonetheless. I do have a question from a couple of questions on the chat. The first one is from John, and it says, how do you get the different, you're a funding body, how do you get the different stakeholders in Denmark to work together, or do they work together when preparing these projects?
Well, very good question, and it's notorically difficult. Normally, we'd work with one local stakeholder, so we won't really involve more than one stakeholder. but it is possible. I mean, we can have the sports organizations also as a part of a project, a local project. So yeah, it only actually takes the common ambition to build something which is innovative and out of the ordinary. Then we can actually be in that process and facilitate that process as a foundation.
Thank you. And I've got a question from Max from Japan, who's interested in the changing preferences of sports in Danish people, children especially. Any idea why those are occurring?
Children are quite stable. That's not where the big change is. They're still in the sports facilities, and they're quite faithful to the associations, really. The big changes within the grown-up part of the population. They've actually, back in the 60s, 1960s, when we started asking about people's recreational habits, they were not active at all when they grew up. I mean, that sports was something you did when you were young, and then you just stopped and never came back. And now it's basically a flat line. I mean, you're just as active all through life, and that's a huge change. And that's a bigger part of the sports active people in Denmark than the children. Actually, it's a bigger percentage of the sport active people. So that's a very interesting group to look at.
Could I just ask you a specific example of the equality issue that you said in terms of males and females? Is there one example you could highlight that has helped improve the female participation?
It's really worrying that doesn't really make its way through the building process, very rarely anyway. But what we know is we don't actually prefer the same activities, men and women. So it should actually have a much larger impact on the design of the facilities. But we do actually try to work with girls and women and their needs for what they prefer in smaller activities arenas. For instance, handball is the big defining game in Danish sports facilities, and that's a very, very big court, whereas a lot of the preferred activities for women are in smaller spaces, on smaller teams. So we build smaller activity areas, and we also build nicer changing rooms and maybe even improve the cleaning quality of the facilities. Small things like that, but also larger things need to be done. Or also the safety issue, feeling safe in the facility, proper lighting and transparency when needed. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Oliver. There are a few more questions coming through, but hopefully we can pick them up later. We're going to have to move across a short area of water, the North Sea, over to Nicky in Liverpool. Welcome, Nicky. Look forward to your presentation. You take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Keith. I'm just going to share now. Hopefully that has come through okay. Yep. You can see that. Excellent. Well, before I start officially, it's just really great to be here, see everybody, lots of familiar and new faces. Thank you so much to TAFISA and IAKS for inviting us to speak today. Hello to all friends and colleagues around the world. It's been brilliant hearing about all your amazing work, and I'm sure I'll be in touch with you to find out more. I'm going to share this presentation today with my colleague Donna Winrow, who will be joining me shortly. And we'd like to tell you a little bit about the work we've been doing in Liverpool, which may be similar to some of the work you're doing in your cities, or it may help you to think differently about your existing approaches to physical activity. I know I'm certainly thinking differently after seeing the presentation so far today. So a little bit about Liverpool. Hopefully you know how much we love sport and music and culture in Liverpool. Some familiar faces maybe on the slide here as well. A bigger photograph for Liverpool, the Reds, of course. Despite having some fantastic things about Liverpool, we have some really stubborn inequalities in the city. We have lots of our young people living in poverty. We have high unemployment levels that are higher than the national average, and there are significant health inequalities as well in Liverpool. Physical activity has been a key priority in our city since 2005, when we launched our very first Liverpool Active City strategy. We, as the City Council in Liverpool, we have a lead role in enabling the vision to be achieved, to be the most active city in England. And since our journey started in 2005, we've done lots of work across the system to try to promote physical activity and to be innovative. And Keith will be really pleased that we're launching another active workplace programme soon. You mentioned that at the beginning, Keith, so I'm pleased to be able to announce that today as well. We are absolutely committed to a whole systems approach in Liverpool to tackle inactivity. And I wanted to just talk a little bit, not too much about COVID-19 and the pandemic, but just to say that it has absolutely made inactivity worse within the city. But we knew before the pandemic that physical activity was increasing very slowly. So we were already thinking differently about how we could tackle this problem that we have in Liverpool still at the moment. You'll see here our current activity levels. So this is for people aged 16 plus in Liverpool, doing at least 30 minutes of physical activity a week. You'll see that between November 2016 and November 2020, we've actually got less people being active for at least 30 minutes per week. So we know that we do have to think differently about tackling this problem in our city. What we are about to do is launch our Great Outdoors Pledge as part of our pandemic pledges, and we're really pleased to be able to do that to help people reconnect with the outdoors in our fantastic parks and open spaces that we have in the city. We're also investing heavily as a city in creating active spaces. So some of our roads, some of our key transport routes, we've never had greater investment than we have now in terms of helping people to build activity into their day. So we're not just promoting traditional forms of activity, gyms and sports clubs. We're actually embedding physical activity within the infrastructure of Liverpool itself. I wanted to also share with you some national pieces of work that we're doing in Liverpool and that we're learning from, which you may want to have a look at. Sport England play a very active role in supporting cities in England to tackle inactivity at a systems level. So there's two publications here that you might want to refer to if that's something that you're looking to embark on. Liverpool itself has been involved in the navigating local systems work, and that is really about having the right conversations with the right people to embed physical activity within the fabric of the city. I just wanted to touch on a piece of work that we started in 2018 called Local Active Partnerships. This approach is where we're focused on smaller areas within Liverpool where we know we need to do more to tackle inactivity than perhaps some of the other places. We also have a small team at the moment, and we wanted to really focus our resources onto the areas that had some of the greatest needs within the city. And you'll see 5 areas there outlined. And this gives us an opportunity to bring together local partners, local stakeholders, and actually find the solutions to an activity within those communities themselves. I can do a lot of work here, standing behind my desk, but actually it's people in local communities that live in those places that have probably lots more answers than I have. So that's a really important approach for us in Liverpool, to actually engage with our local places. At this point, I would like to hand over to Donna. Donna's going to tell us a little bit about her local park and the work that she does as a volunteer. Donna also works full-time and manages to still put in hundreds and thousands of hours per year into making a local park an active space for local people. And this is a really crucial approach, we think, in Liverpool to tackling inactivity. So, Donna, over to you.
Nicky, I take it Donna's here.
Yes, Donna's here. I know she's having some issues with her connection.
Okay.
Hopefully Donna will be able to join us.
And she's been unmuted by Stacey, I assume.
That could be the answer.
She is unmuted, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I think Donna may be having a few issues. So in that case, I can talk through some of the work that Donna and her colleagues, her fellow volunteers, have been doing in the park, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicky.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said, the Friends of Springfield Park in Nottingham are a fantastic local group who are doing so much work in their local community to make their park an active space. Just to say, Donna, if you do manage to connect, just interrupt me and jump in, and I'll stop talking so you can. So Donna and her fellow volunteers have done so much community engagement, so much listening to people locally about what they want in their local park. And then they've been organising lots of localised activities. You'll see some of the pictures here on the screen. Oh, sorry about that. The screen has decided to move. I will go back. As you can see, the Friends group have been working in partnership with the Liverpool FC Foundation, who run a fantastic programme within the park called Open Goals, which is one of those family activities you were talking about earlier, Keith, as well. They also run a nature club, which is comprises outdoor activities and well-being for families. And really, they are aiming to make Springfield Park the best it can be. They put the community at the heart of everything that they're doing. And they are working really closely with us as the City Council to make the park a better place. As you can see here from the very brightly coloured container, this is one of the assets that is used in the park for storage and other things. Next door, we have a cycle hub as well. And cycling is one of the activities that the Friends group, led by Donna, is a real focus this year to launch, as is the new walking and running clubs, table tennis clubs as well. And as you can see from the photographs, lots of young people's activities going on, chalk painting on the walkways, which I think is really fantastic for getting young people out into the park, doing something different, using the space in a very different way as well. Donna, have you managed to connect? I'm just conscious you might want to say a few words if you can.
If not, we can maybe take some comments during the panel. We're moving on in time, so shall we?
Yeah. time.
If we can get Donna on, we'll give her a couple of minutes at the end of the panel session, if that's okay.
Great, thanks, Keith. And just to finish, if I can, as I said, you know, the investment in the infrastructure in the city is really crucial, but actually local people finding the solutions to an activity is of particular importance, I think. And I think the Friends group is a fantastic example of local people leading the way as well. So thank you for listening, and please do get in touch if you have any further questions.
Thanks, Nicky. It's always wonderful to hear what's going on in the city, and I didn't know about what was going on in the gardens and the parks, and so that's absolutely fascinating. I am getting a little bit of time pressure, Nicky, so I'm going to leave any potential questions for the panel, and just to start with the last 20 minutes, we've got a couple of other guests on the panel. We've got Margit, Budde, and we've got Bernard Baptiste, and I'm going to invite both of those to make a quick statement, and then obviously make some time open for questions. Now, the Margit's from Playfit GmbH, and I know you're a representative of the sports facilities and infrastructure industry. So how does your company work in developing active spaces for active citizens in open spaces, Margit? I just wonder if you could give us some insights. I think you're on mute at the moment, Margit, sorry. Stacey, could we unmute Margit? There we go.
Hello together. Thank you for the possibility at first to participate in this interesting workshop. I'm marketing manager at Playfit GmbH in Hamburg. Hamburg, the big town in Germany, is one of the global active cities, for your information. Okay, and now I come back to your question. Actually, there are several answers to this question. Since our company Playfit was founded, we have gone through a learning process about how best to encourage and promote such facilities. Initially, we had hoped that in Europe such installations would operate more or less on their own, without requiring much encouragement for people to use it regularly. While this is certainly true, we found that much more benefit being generated by seeking to work with a network of stakeholders to generate a kind of boost. This means working together with municipalities, sport clubs and organizations to promote the idea of providing a service of citizens with respect to health promotion, as opposed to only providing sport facilities which might only be used by a certain sector on the population, younger and more active users, and of little interest to couch potatoes and exercise refuseniks. This includes taking additional measures, such as promoting groups under trainer supervisions with fitness training, not just with the machines, but together and around the machines as a comprehensive training schedule. And we have an idea behind. We mean not only fitness machines, we have a system of potential trainer behind, because the idea is to bring younger and older people to participate the courses. Yes.
Okay, thanks very much, Margit. It's really great to have you here, and hopefully we'll get some questions for you in the panel. The second guest that I'm going to introduce is Bernard Baptiste, from a part of the world that I've always wanted to visit. So it's wonderful to see you, Bernard, from Mauritius, and I know you want to say a few words about how open and public spaces can have wonderful roles for the sport and cultural life of Mauritian subjects. So I'll pass over to you.
Thank you very much, and for giving me the possibility to present here. So here in Mauritius, we have taken great deals of actions following our National Sports and Physical Activity Survey, which we conducted. And from this survey, we could see that mostly people are engaged in outdoor activities, walking, swimming, and also the demand for activities in Mauritius has been always tending towards outdoor activities. And from this perspective and from that survey, we had strong support from the government, who put in place statutory organizations to enhance physical activity and the use of outdoor facilities. And so we had the Ministry of Youth and Sport, who developed the National Sports and Physical Activity Policy. And the Mauritius Sports Council was mandated for implementing the National Sports and Physical Activity Policy. And under the aegis of the MSC, we had to develop a brand called Active Mauritius. And Active Mauritius would be like the implementing arms for the National Sports and Physical Activity Policy. But at the same time, we realized that transducing a policy into action is sometimes very rough and difficult. And so we developed a strategy for a 5-year strategy, and we call it 35 actions to reach 35% of the population active, keeping in mind that the population active in Mauritius is very low, only 14%. And we are hoping to reach 35% in 5 years, so in 4 years till 2025, through a series of actions which you can see. And in these lines of strategy, we have several points which deals greatly with outdoor education. We have the National Learn to Swim program. We have outdoor education and recreational activities. And also we have started to activate physical activity in tertiary education sectors. And so we had several challenges which came up during putting all this in place. For example, if I take the National Learn to Swim program, when we started in 2017, we had only 30 schools participating, as we had only 5 swimming pools available. But for the school year July 2020 to February 21, we've been able to work with private institutions, and we've got 9 swimming pools at the moment. And this increased our capacity from 30 schools to now we have 233 schools participating, over 253 national primary schools. And that increased our number of participants greatly from 900 to roughly 10,000. And also, the Ministry of Sport and Ministry of Education, as recommended in the policy, we are working interministerial way, so that now the Ministry of Education gonna finance the building of additional 4 pools and also the purchase of portable swimming pools. And also, I would like to add, like, we we engage with we didn't forget the most vulnerable part of the population, who are extremely reluctant to participate in some physical activity because they feel, here in Mauritius, they feel that they do not, how to say, they do not belong to that. They have more urges to deal with. But we've set in place an outdoor education center down in a really stranded area, and we've been able to have extremely positive results. And finally, to add, we had two major problems here why the participation rate is extremely low, is that people say that they work. So from that, we designed, you can see from this sweet picture, we've designed what we call exercise at workplace programs. So once a week or twice a week for 2 hours. Certain private institution, they provide 2 hours of exercise to their staff. And to conclude, we've run through our youth, and the reasons they provide us that they don't participate much in activities is that the center is not that modern or doesn't fit their choice. So we've taken step. You can see one example of how we are refurbishing certain youth centers to make it more attractive to our youth, who are extremely not demanding, but they don't see nowadays infrastructure as something appealing to them. But these kind of infrastructures, from the report and surveys we've done with them, have really made big changes, and they are really willing to participate. We had one activity compared to other activities we had one activity during December around those infrastructures, and we had like 1,100 participants, which is extremely more positive than activities in the past where we were ranging from 100 to 200 participants. Thank you very much.
Eugene, that was marvelous. Like everybody else, thank you for sharing what's happening on the wonderful island of Mauritius. We are moving into the last 5 minutes, and I'm keen to let Klaus and Wolfgang say something just to close the meeting off. But I've picked up a couple of things in the chat room which I think are quite interesting, and I'll just throw them out to anybody on the panel who wants to comment. One of the questions is obviously that we've talked a lot about urbanized spaces. And are any of the cities working with semi-urbanized spaces or indeed rural spaces? And the second question is mainly about children, and it's bridging the gap between leaving school and moving into university or into work or into other elements of life. And does anybody have specific input into how we maintain children's physical activity beyond school? So a couple of questions. We've only got 3 or 4 minutes, so if anybody wants to shout out with an answer, please do so. Oliver.
If I may, Keith. Yeah, thank you. The question about the rural villages. We think certainly a lot can be done. Well, taking into account the urbanization tendency, there might be fewer people out there. So maybe we have to look at downsizing and actually connecting existing hubs of activity, not to spread out too much and not to copy the next village either. So more communication between villages, so they actually supplement each other instead of competing, and also maybe connecting already active activity points and downsizing maybe some buildings and improving quality instead of quantity.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much, Oliver. That's great. And do we have one final comment on the maintaining children's physical activity? Margit, if you want to unmute and make a statement, that would be great. Stacey, can we unmute Margit? There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are a long year cooperation partner of IAKS and TAFISA, and we see a lot of potential for the future, especially in times of Corona. It has become clear how immensely important physical exercise is for children and for adults. And we have an offer. We are looking for partners for pilot project for children and adults, not only in Europe, but also in your countries. And I wish you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keith,
yeah.
Can I, it's Stefan, can I quickly, you asked how can we keep people active, and I think one key fact that Oliver also talked about is that young people are active in sports facilities, normed, standardized sports facilities for handball or whatever. And as soon as you become an adult and you leave, you go to university or to your work life, you tend to practice sport or activity not in standardized sports facilities anymore. So I think we have to think much more in facilities that are not typically sports facilities, and also we have to think how can we make the public space a place for active living. I think that's one of the key facts in my opinion.
Yep, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that additional comment, Stefan. I'm actually going to wrap this up there and ask if Klaus and Wolfgang have a 30-second summary sort of statement for the day, because I know when you plan 2-hour sessions, you have to stick to the time limit. So Wolfgang, I'll pass over to you.
Yes, wow, this was indeed a very exciting trip all over the world, and I was so happy to be invited to stay with 7 countries worldwide. And if I like to conclude, I have basically 2 answers. My first one is more private, because if I were able to travel freely in time and space, I would like to schedule my day tomorrow by starting off with a diving tour in Taitung. Then I would pick up my bike and do a sightseeing tour during the open car-free day in Kigali in Rwanda, before I would then take my granddaughters and celebrate birthday in Buenos Aires with the Estaciones Salutables, before I would then go down the snow slope on the Coppen Hill, before finally, and I have to say this, I would watch a game of Liverpool against Everton in Liverpool, just to relax a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I feel a little bit like a soccer player who immediately after 90 minutes has to give up a conclusion on the game where he was part of. So I just put together, and thank you, Jean-François, for writing this down, 5 trends that are rather spontaneous, but also a little bit going beyond the topic of today, where I would believe we can conclude a little bit. From what I learned today, we have to move from a standardized monofunctional to a multifunctional facility approach, even though I was very happy to hear from Oliver that it is something in between. These are 2 extremes. What is very important for my own life, that we are moving from a monosport to a multi-activity target group approach. It's not anymore true if a person starts being a soccer player, he will staying a soccer player for all his or her life. You will change according to your life circle, what you are doing, and we have to cater and we have to prepare the facilities to this sort of requirement. What for me is also very important to note is that the majority of the speakers very often made use of the word physical activity instead of sport. I think it's not just a semantic issue. There is more in it. It appears that the term sport does not anymore cover the full diversity and variety of what we now understand under physical activity, which is a broader term, giving many more people an opportunity to get active. And maybe they are ending up at the end of the day in sport, but I guess we have to give a new image to the whole phenomenon or concept of physical activity. Interesting to note, but maybe this is more a coincidence, there was a trend to see from indoor to outdoor approach. 95% of what I saw this afternoon was taking place outside. Maybe this is a result of Corona, I don't know. And what I was also quite thrilled by is that we have to say goodbye a little bit to just ready-made traditional sport facilities, just because we are used to them, to more evidence-based, demand-oriented approaches, which is something in my simple words, but in a nutshell, these are the 5 learnings of today. And of course, we would be happy to learn a little bit more, whether you have a different approach, or maybe we can share this on our other proposals to the audience of today to ask for comments. This is from my side. Once again, thank you very much for joining. We are most happy that most of the time we had a permanent audience of 200, which is, of course, reflecting on the quality of the speakers and, of course, also the moderator. So once again, thank you very much to all of you, in particular also to you, Keith. And we are looking forward to having you joining again for our 3rd edition of our workshop series under the Mission 2030. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Let me say, firstly, thank you to TAFISA and to IAKS, Klaus and Wolfgang, to all of the speakers who've have given their time freely today for some fantastic examples of work across the globe. Thank you to the TAFISA office, Stacey, Gaetan, and everybody else for helping out in putting this together, and a special best wishes to Jean-Francois in Sardinia. But mostly, let me thank all of you in the audience who've taken time out of your busy days to come and listen to this wonderful session. Let me wish you good health and a wonderful week, and hopefully wherever you are in the world, the sun will shine on you sometime in the next 24 hours. So thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.